Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to campus. At the start of summer, I always tell myself how quiet it's going to be. And while things do slow a bit, the university doesn't get as sleepy as I expect. I'm eager to share some of the things that have happened over the summer, what I've been listening to, thinking and reading about, and what we might anticipate in the year ahead as we continue to make progress on the college's strategic plan that supports the university's blueprint for success. But first, I want to talk about why we're still having a virtual meeting when nearly everything on campus has returned to face-to-face activity. At the point when I needed to decide whether the meeting would be live or virtual, I wasn't sure if I could be in Boise today. My daughter decided to go to the University of North Texas to major in music performance, and I needed and wanted to help her get there. Her move-in date wasn't set, and though I knew I could catch a direct flight back from Dallas, I worried that this big life event for both of us might not put me in the best frame of mind to deliver the kind of message that I want to share with you, something thoughtful, structured, and not too emotional about the year ahead of us. This is the primary reason for today's format, but as I got deeper into the thinking and writing, I realized that a technologically enhanced medium would resonate with one of my central themes. A lot of what's been on my mind this summer is what it means to be human in a rapidly evolving digital world and how our college can lead in such a moment. Today, the digital is allowing me to be fully present for an important milestone in my daughter's life. We talk a lot about finding some kind of balance between work and the rest of our lives, and I really appreciate having the chance to model that today. I truly love my work and feel deeply honored to be allowed to do it. But I love my daughter even more, and I'm glad to be able to prioritize this time with her. I'm truly grateful that the provost supported my choice here, and I will try to do the same for the leaders who report to me. In turn, I hope they will do the same for you when you make requests that are truly important to you. In addition to going to the Dallas area this summer, I also visited Boulder for professional development through WICHE, the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education. One of the things they asked us to read in advance of the workshop was a classic article by John Cotter from the Harvard Business Review called "What Leaders Really Do." The teaser for the article reads, "They don't make plans, they don't solve problems, they don't even organize people. What leaders really do is prepare organizations for change and help them cope as they struggle through it." This is what I will try to do in this talk. Higher education, our university, and our college are likely to change significantly in the next few years. I'll share what I see on the horizon and how I think we can shape and lead that change rather than waiting for it to happen to us. That will be interwoven with updates from late spring and summer and information about progress or plans related to the blueprint for success. For those of you who were around prior to the pandemic, you may remember that we used to introduce each new faculty member individually at the start of the fall meeting. It was so nice to connect names and faces and to hear about the work of colleagues with similar interests. But as the college grew, and as excitement over those who were joining our community only seemed to increase, this section of the meeting went on far too long. We will again offer new faculty and staff a chance to create a short video introduction that we will share in a fall newsletter, and we will have a chance to meet new colleagues at the fall gathering, which takes place on August 24th. Be on the lookout for name tags with blue dots. Folks wearing them are new to COAS or new to their role, and I'd be glad if you made a point of talking to them and getting to know them or of welcoming them to new work in the college. While we're used to welcoming new individuals into the college, for the first time since the dissolution of the old College of Social Science and Public Affairs, we are welcoming 2 programs into our community. I could not be more delighted that GIM, Gaming, Interactive Media, and Mobile Technology, and HES, Human Environment Systems, are graduating from the College of Innovation and Design to the College of Arts and Sciences. I have long admired the faculty and work of both programs, and I feel sure that the COAS community will be even more vibrant thanks to these new colleagues, their students, and their projects. I know there are already many collaborations among longstanding COAS departments and GIM and HES, but I urge you to imagine new possibilities and to warmly welcome the faculty, staff, and students from GIM and HES to COAS. The end of the fiscal year leads to a flurry of activity in offices across campus. And once that dust settles a little bit, we get numbers that help us take stock of our accomplishments and our challenges. One area of activity where we have reason to celebrate is fundraising. Last year, COAS had an outstanding year in fundraising. We raised $9,979,041 for a variety of important initiatives, including scholarships, paid internships, support for our champion Talkin' Broncos, the Luminary, the Intermountain Bird Observatory, and an endowed chair in developmental biology, among a variety of other things. We hope that COAS gifts will exceed $10 million next year, and we have excellent momentum going into the campaign, which will officially launch this fall. The campaign will prioritize scholarships, endowed chairs, and athletics. Our success in fundraising and the launch of the campaign are reasons why the university has invested in expanding our fundraising team to 4 people. I look forward to sharing information with you about our 2 new development directors very soon. One will support the School of the Arts, the Humanities and Social Sciences, while the other will support the School of Environment, Math, and the Sciences. I'd also like to brag on our Senior Development Director, Melanie Bannister, without whom this year's success would simply not be possible. Melanie was named as one of Fundraising Performance Management's prime officers. Prime officers excel in the FPM community, which is made up of 130 institutions of higher education. They outperform other officers in the number of proposals submitted at or above $25,000 and the number of visits they make. Melanie is a nationally recognized rock star in her field, and we are beyond lucky to have her working with us. I'm also appreciative of the great work Brandon Fudge did before being promoted to Director of Strategic Corporate Partnerships for University Advancement, and so grateful for what Danielle Torres does as the COAS Advancement Coordinator. Finally, the fundraising power of the college has been multiplied by the work of School of the Arts Director Amanda Ashley and School of the Environment Director Kevin Ferris. Raising nearly $10 million is a team effort, and I'm so grateful to this group and others throughout COAS who are contributing to our efforts to support our people and programs. The good news in fundraising and the good news about research productivity that I'll share later in the presentation is balanced with less good news in terms of Bronco budget. Our SCH majors and graduates were down less than 1%, or about $440,000 in FY23. On the one hand, a decline of less than 1% is hardly reason for alarm, as mild annual fluctuations are to be expected in our numbers. But on the other, it is also a significant amount of permanent money that we had to return to the university. Some of the key drivers we identified are declines in graduate enrollments, the movement of enrollment from face-to-face to online programs that exist outside Bronco budget, and an ongoing decline in majors in several parts of the college. That last issue is one that we have to keep an eye on. Since the beginning of Bronco budget 5 years ago, COAS has shed 473 majors. That's a 9.6% decline. Our SCH is up overall, which helps to offset the decline, but this is more nuanced than it may sound. Enrollment in COAS classes for majors have dropped by more than 8,000 credit hours, but this has been offset by gains in UF, Foundations in Communication, and coursework offered in partnership with Extended Studies. These gains, combined with promotion bumps, CEC, and funded strategic budget requests, have actually led to a college budget that is $10 million larger than it was prior to the start of Bronco budget in 2018. I'm sharing these details because we are transitioning to a new budget model, a more complete RCM, or responsibility-centered management system. Well-respected institutions across the country have been operating on RCM models for many years, and many others are considering this kind of model. Incremental models, like those that we had before Bronco Budget 2.0, reload historical funding year after year, regardless of changes in revenue or expense in the institution, and they're steadily falling out of favor as enrollment shift, research profiles change, costs increase, and state governments reduce their support for public higher education. I think if we're honest with ourselves, we will admit that much has changed in higher education in recent years, and that it makes sense to have a model designed to respond, where possible, to mitigate those pressures. Blaming everything that goes wrong in our units on Bronco Budget is more than a little disingenuous. Institutions that have adopted RCM models talk about their benefits and transparency regarding revenue and cost, predictability if they run on 3-year rather than 1-year cycles, the location of budgetary authority at the level of colleges because they are seen as a sweet spot regarding breadth and depth of perspective, and because these models often build in a pot of funds that can be redistributed back to colleges and other units in order to further the pursuit of the university's strategic goals. I've learned quite a bit about RCMs this summer because I leapt at the opportunity to join the pre-planning committee for budget modernization. One of the best ways I thought I might help COAS thrive under the new model, while also thinking about the larger needs of the university, is to be part of the group helping to design our RCM structure. The group has been reading a lot, and some of us have gone on campus visits for in-depth study of relatively mature RCMs. I was glad I got to visit my undergraduate alma mater, the University of Virginia, a couple of weeks ago. Some of the things I really appreciated about the way UVA adapted the typical features of an all funds, all areas model. Our current RCM, incremental hybrid, has only been operating in academic affairs, was something they stated in one of their reports. It's well understood that the university is not driven by a profit motive and that the academic mission and financial models of some units may not generate enough revenue to cover their direct and allocated expenses. I also really appreciated their clear respect for their College of Arts and Sciences, while also having expectations that it evolve to ensure the university's well-being. They write, based on the university's stated values and principles, we considered how the algorithm might make a modest contribution to stabilizing the financial position of the college, which enrolls the vast majority of undergraduates and represents the academic heart of the university. At the same time, we recognize the importance of maintaining pressure on the college to be inventive, entrepreneurial, and accountable. Those things that I can appreciate about the context that demands budgetary change and a positive application of a model at a particular university are balanced by some degree of trepidation for how this may impact COAS. RCM models still count majors in SCH, but the major home gets a cut of the SCH. This means that when a COAS student takes a math class, we would get 100% of the student credit hours. But if a student in another college takes a math class, that other college would get a percentage of the SCH, even though they aren't responsible for the cost of instruction. This formula hasn't been set yet for our campus. Whatever the split, we will be seeing more tuition revenue flowing into COAS because of this new way of counting, but we will also begin paying for services in direct ways that we hadn't done before. Our labor in educating students has always been part of the way these services were financed, but now we will be able to see it more clearly. We will have a better sense of the costs and how we contribute to those costs. Units will likely pay for something like HR in proportion to their number of employees, of which we have far more than any other unit. Another change that is in many RCMs is that 100% of F&A flows to the college. But just as we pay for the service we use in HR, we would pay for the services we use in OSP, and we consume a lot of those. This new method of accounting will have to spur conversations about what departments and PIs can expect regarding their cut of the F&A. Right now, it's hard to predict exactly how this will affect COAS funding, but one rough estimate that the provost shared was to calculate whether a program was sustainable on 60% of the tuition it generates. The COAS team has started looking at programs according to this formula, and we'll be sharing our findings with department chairs in the next couple of weeks. We know that some of our large and highly efficient programs will help to balance those that are smaller or less efficient. But overall, our portfolio of programs and activities will have to be able to support most, if not all, of our expenses. The 60-40 formula is one that we will apply to conversations about open lines of all types. We know that a significant change is coming for COAS, and we need to start preparing for it by looking at our expenses as best we can through the lens of the formula that is a proxy for what will be next. To be clear, this means that there will be a higher level of scrutiny on requests, and fewer requests will receive permanent funding right now so that we can maintain the flexibility I anticipate us needing when the new budget model launches. If I'm wrong, and if we're over-preparing for the new budget model, I will be absolutely delighted. This summer, I took Joshua Kim's advice in Inside Higher Education for some paired summer reading. Kim recommended reading Juliet Kayyem's book, The Devil Never Sleeps, Learning to Live in an Age of Disasters, in concert with Brian Alexander's Universities on Fire, which explores the inevitable impact of the climate crisis on universities and universities' potential to help mitigate that crisis. I would recommend both books, but in the context of a new budget model, I've been finding Kayyem's ideas especially provocative. She urges us to focus less on disaster prevention, the devil never sleeps, and the boom, as she calls it, will always come, and more on how we might engineer less bad consequences when it does. This is my approach to the period pre-RCM implementation. I recognize that some of you would like to have far more detail about how budgetary decisions are made, while some of you would like far less. Another thing that I really liked from my UVA visit that I'd like to emulate is creating a college-level faculty budget committee. Ultimately, I am responsible for making sure that our teaching, research, and service deliverables are met with the resource package that we are allocated by the university. It's my job to make the tough decisions that other people don't want to make that will benefit the whole of the college. There is no shortage of wonderful things to do in COAS, but we can't afford them all on our current model, and we won't be able to do so on the next one either. Honestly, this breaks my heart. But the budget team at Virginia said repeatedly that the budget model is only a tool. The values-based decisions come from how deans use that tool. Before I use that powerful tool, I would like to be able to check my perspective on the college and the university against your experiences in departments and programs. It's important to me that our shared values are clearly articulated. Chief among those for me is that we are a community where we balance our individual needs and aspirations with those of the group so that we might all thrive as best we can together. Please stay tuned for ways that you might participate in this important conversation. As you know, the first goal in the college and university strategic plan is about student success. I don't see this as an abrupt transition from the topic of values-driven budget decisions. Our single most important function is making sure that students can access the opportunities that education provides while giving them the tools they need to succeed. This is a place where, when we do good, we can also do well financially. Supporting and retaining students is all of our jobs, and when we succeed, we should also retain the resources needed to continue this noble calling. I am happy to announce that we now have a full leadership team in COAS devoted to student success that will help us do that important job. Kelly Myers, Associate Dean for Undergraduate Education and Student Success. Jose Lee Perez, Director of First Year Experiences. Megan Gams, Associate Director of Student Success Initiatives. And David Brandt, Associate Director of Advising Services. Before I describe their roles, I want to thank Upper Administration for allocating the funding to create the new Director of First Year Experiences and Associate Director of Student Success Initiatives roles, and pause to provide a bit of background. Last year, our Student Success and Retention Implementation Group laid the groundwork for our college-level Strategic Enrollment and Retention Plan, or SERP. That group set a clear goal for our SERP work: to reduce equity gaps through targeted and coordinated student support across the College of Arts and Sciences. There is no single or easy solution to reducing equity gaps. Our students face numerous challenges. They embody diverse identities, and they have wide-ranging needs. The implementation group kept returning to one key question: with so much that we could and should do to better support our students, where do we begin? In response to that question, the group agreed that the first phase of our SERP work will prioritize the following areas: first-year students, students who leave with some credit, no credential, and advising and mentoring support. In addition to these student-focused areas, the group also emphasized the point that student support work requires careful attention to faculty and staff support. Student support and faculty staff support go hand in hand. It's also important to note that by naming our priority areas for our SERP, we are not eliminating or overshadowing existing student support work in the college. We still need nuanced student support at the department and program level. What we are adding is a college-level commitment to reducing equity gaps, and that commitment demands new kinds of leadership, coordination, assessment, and invention. That brings me back to our new Student Success Leadership Team. Each of our SERP priority areas will have dedicated leadership. Jose Lee Perez will lead our effort to better support students across their first year. Megan Gams will lead our effort to understand why students are stopping out, particularly in the junior year. And David Brandt will lead our advising team and work closely with our newly formed advising council to provide both proactive and responsive advising support. These leaders will analyze existing data and connect with campus partners in order to create targeted interventions and assessment plans. I invite you to engage with them in their work, and I will keep you updated on their progress. While I am excited about the work ahead, I also want to acknowledge that equity gaps have persisted over decades, and there is no single or easy solution. Our students face numerous challenges, they embody diverse identities, and they have wide-ranging needs. To help us more deeply understand student experiences, Casey Etsy has been a leader in building new kinds of data infrastructure for the SERP work. This summer, she started disaggregating data and preparing data summaries for our departments. And this fall, she will hold data walks with COAS SERP stakeholders so that the student data can be grounded in a shared context that takes into account the origins of inequity and key differences across student groups in experiences, access, and outcomes. These summaries and data walks will identify the most pressing inequities in retention and graduation so that COAS working groups, departments, programs, and support offices can all work in alignment towards shared equity goals. As I move through our strategic goals, I think you'll hear that work in one area is inflected with aspirations toward progress in another. That is certainly true of our work on the goal of innovation for institutional impact. Last year, I worked with Amanda Ashley, Kevin Ferris, and the Innovation Lab Implementation Group to launch a grant program to support innovative ideas across the college. We were surprised and delighted by how many of these aim to support student success directly or indirectly, while also advancing research and creative activity or nurturing a thriving community. In fact, it turned out that all the funded proposals touched on student success in some way. The lab funded 16 proposals. PIs came from anthropology, art, design, and visual studies, biology, chemistry, English literature, geosciences, history, interdisciplinary professional studies, media, theater, film, and creative writing, world languages, and writing studies. We'd planned to fund up to $250,000, but with the generous support of a donor and a little extra funding from COAS, we were able to award $268,191. I know some of you would like additional detail about the funded projects, and we will share the names of project teams, titles, and a brief description of the project in our first newsletter of the fall semester so that you can review them at your leisure. We do plan to offer a second funding opportunity this year, both for funded projects to enter into a second phase of development and for new projects, so please stay tuned for those details later this semester. We will try to improve on the process while continuing to support your creative and innovative ideas. I'm glad that we created a visible, accessible path for seeking support for ideas within the college, and that we brought people together into new partnerships to build the kind of college they want to have. The power and promise of COAS thinking that we saw in the innovation proposals is also clearly evident in the college's end-of-year research numbers, of which I am exceedingly proud. And supporting this growth takes us into the realm of thriving community. In FY23, awards that support research and creative activity across the college increased by 33% when compared to FY22. The number of submissions increased by 131% and expenditures by 24%. I am thrilled about this growth in research and creative activity, quite frankly stunned by your energy and innovative spirit, and I recognize that the growth of structures that support pre- and post-award management ought to grow in proportion to this activity. If we accomplish this, then faculty will spend less time on administrative duties, leaving them with more time to focus on growing their research and creative activity portfolios. It will also support administrative staff who have seen their workload grow intensely with the increase in research and creative activity. In order to promote the healthy, meaningful, sustainable, and inclusive growth of research and creative activity within COAS, we've created a Research and Creative Activity Hub under the leadership of Associate Dean Mariana DeGraff and in partnership with Donna Llewellyn and the Research and Creative Activity Implementation Group. I'd like to thank Mariana, Donna, and our RCA Implementation Group, composed of faculty, department chairs, and support staff who met on a bi-weekly basis throughout the 22-23 academic year to work on the following question. How do we provide the support to faculty to have more time and space to conduct and grow their impactful work such that faculty have an impact on the scientific community, students, and the community at large, while staying healthy and successful in their area of scholarship? I'm excited about the strides they've made in implementing initiatives that help us get closer to this goal, and I'll briefly outline the major accomplishments of their work. First, the RCA team conducted a listening tour of departments to better understand how a Research and Creative Activity Hub may support faculty from across the college. They've repeatedly expressed their gratitude to faculty for their willingness to engage in the conversation and provide suggestions for improvement that have informed the blueprint for the structure and functioning of the hub. Second, Mariana has recruited a team of research and creative activity administrators who are ready to support faculty with the preparation of proposal submissions for extramural funds and post-award management of these funds. This shared service team is led by the RCA Hub manager, Shay Dumas-Gillette, who comes to us with years of experience leading teams and supporting faculty with their research and creative activity. Third, in concert with the initiation of the RCA administration team, the college is intentionally building community among support staff from across departments who are engaged in extramural funds management. The community is creating a shared handbook of standard operating procedures for extramural funds management and service agreements that are grounded in best practices for RCA management. In creating this support, we work closely with the Office of Sponsored Projects. By building a cross-unit team for grants accounting, we will enable higher levels of support for individual faculty and research teams, facilitate continuity of support for researchers, and more evenly distribute workload for support staff. Fourth, Stephen Crowley and Shay Dumas-Gillette are creating opportunities for faculty from across COAS to build community through low-barrier, easily accessible networking events that enable faculty to learn about others' work and facilitate conversation. Fifth, COAS is collaborating with the Center for Advancing Research and Creative Activity, which is in development in the Division of Research and Economic Development, to provide support materials for faculty that make it easier to find and navigate requests for proposals for their flavor of scholarship, and to understand the processes related to proposal preparation and submission, including gifts which go through the foundation. And sixth, Mariana has implemented a COAS student travel support program to encourage and support graduate students to present their scholarly work at academic societies or professional meetings. So far, COAS has supported 15 students through this program. While I'm over the moon about this incredible progress, I also recognize that there is still lots of work that can be done to support research and creative activity. I know many of you have asked for support in proposal preparation in terms of strategy, validating ideas, writing competitive proposals, and making effective use of institutional resources. You've also asked for help with the communication of your research and creative activity to the broader community, and for resources that make it easier to learn about RCA happening across COAS and about equipment that might be shared for research and creative activity. We will continue to seek ways to build this support in the next academic year, strategically feeding resources that come from research and creative activity back into it so that this work can be sustained in a healthy way. Another important part of supporting research in COAS is having the space that aligns with the volume and sophistication of our activity. Those of you who have labs and offices in the science building know well the significant issues that building has with air handling, power, temperature, water, and vibration. Last spring, Shay Gillette and Christina Modeshaw did an outstanding job of showing the old science building to our own upper administration and visitors from the state. The current building was constructed when Boise State was quite simply a very different place. It's helped us grow into the research university we have become, but now our STEM colleagues and students need and deserve something very different. It's actually quite thrilling to see us get closer to making this a reality, thanks to an $18 million allocation from the state. This summer, I was very excited to join a 12-member committee, including academic affairs, research, campus operations, and advancement, to begin planning a new building. So far, we've been exploring priorities for programming, weighed the pros and cons of various campus locations, expressed the hope that spaces can be flexible and support collaboration, articulated the desire to provide our community and industry partners with an opportunity to connect with us through space, and stated a willingness to think in innovative ways about financing this deeply needed research infrastructure. In the months ahead, I'm really looking forward to collaborating with chairs, faculty, and staff as we continue to imagine how a state-of-the-art new science building might serve our campus and community better. If there's a section of the plan where I feel like we've been falling short, it's this one. We started the Thriving Community Grant Program with hopes of funding the ideas that you think matter to building or sustaining community, but a large percentage of the time, we aren't allowed to pay for the things you want because of university purchasing rules or other regulations. We will continue to run this program in the year ahead, and we will work with you to find ways to make your ideas fundable within university regulations. But the thing so many of you want, the thing so many of you need, is better pay. We've heard this from several of you this summer after you've received your contracts. For FY24, the state of Idaho approved a CEC, or change in employee compensation plan, based on a dollars per hour rate increase rather than a percent of salary, as they have done in the past. You may remember the provost mentioning in an end-of-semester town hall that this would result in smaller than usual increases for anyone making over about $60,000. For faculty, the average increase was around $1.20 an hour. This was then applied to the 1,560 hours worked in a 9-month contract for a total of $1,872. Chairs determined individual rates using a matrix that weighs performance evaluation scores and compression scores within a department. I review them, and then we send them on to the provost's office where the recommendations are finalized. You can view that matrix on the HR website if you're interested. I'm guessing when you hear some of the things we're doing in COAS or at the university, you wonder why we're doing those things instead of raising salaries. When you hear about $18 million for a science building, you may think about how far that would go to buffer against the Treasure Valley's rapidly rising cost of living. One of the problems is we get money for a specific thing, in this case, a thing we need very much to sustain the teaching and research missions. We can't choose between a building and salaries. We received money for a building. And buildings are in some ways easier to fund. You can receive $18 million one time, and you can get started on a building. To make an $18 million difference in salaries, the state would need to give us $18 million not once, but each year in perpetuity. $9.9 million in fundraising is similar. Donors give to very specific things that speak to their passions, and we are so deeply grateful for the difference this makes in many areas. But except in the case of endowed chairs, which may help to supplement salary for an outstanding individual permanently, these gifts don't address salary. Where we're starting to work on this problem is by understanding the conditions throughout the college, both in terms of workload and what people are being paid relative to the Coupa median for each discipline. From there, we'll make a case at the annual budget request time to address salaries. If this isn't successful, which honestly I don't expect it to be, we will outline the principles by which we try to address the problem internally. If there is no central support, we'll have to go in phases, perhaps starting with the units farthest from the Coupa benchmarks. I'm truly grateful for the leadership and vision Doug Bullock has shown in working on this project this summer, which is an important complement to the work our Budget and Operations Implementation Group did with him on faculty workload last year. For now, I will continue offering people one-time money for extra work. COAS has more flexible one-time money than it does unallocated permanent money. Again, permanent funds are needed to change salaries permanently. Last year, we were able to give about $240,000 in supplemental one-time salary. This went to people who gave their time to strategic planning implementation groups, School of the Environment planning groups, and staff who stepped in and did extra work when it was desperately needed. I do my best to compensate people when they do more, and I'm deeply grateful for this extra work they have done to advance the college. It truly made a meaningful difference. I also feel certain that Tony Rourke is going to make a meaningful difference in various aspects of our thriving community work in the year ahead. I'm delighted that our college leadership team will become even stronger thanks to his deep and wide range of experiences, and I feel sure that he will find ways to support faculty and academic leaders in exciting ways. Before closing out the section on fostering thriving community, I want to take a moment to thank Mackenzie Phillips. Any of you who work with her directly know how amazing she is, but for those of you who don't have that opportunity, I thought you might be glad to know about some of the important places where she has represented our college in the last year. She was the Academic Affairs Lead on the HCM Leadership Group, the Academic Affairs Representative on the Faculty Contracts and HCM Working Group, the Academic Affairs Representative on the CEC Working Group, and the Academic Affairs Representative on HR's Job Standards Working Group. When the rest of the university wants to know how to make things work in academic affairs, they turn to COAS. And the reason for that isn't our size or our complexity, it's Mackenzie. Our thriving as a community is built on a complex infrastructure, and Mackenzie is a visionary architect of it. Please join me in thanking her when you get a chance. The last goal in the blueprint and our strategic plan is that we aim to trailblaze programs and partnerships. In our work last year and in the work we plan for the year ahead, I see the previous goals of student success, innovation, advancing research and creative activity, and helping our community thrive all come together in a really powerful way. I hope you will see that too, as I share updates from the School of the Environment, the School of the Arts, the Humanities and Social Sciences Initiative, the CHIPS Advisory Board, and an emerging partnership with CID to form a school for the digital future. As you know, the State Board of Education approved our School of the Environment last summer. The school's mission is this: the SOE transforms cutting-edge teaching, experiential learning, and scholarly excellence into community-engaged action. We achieve this through a unique combination of student training and faculty scholarship, focusing on solutions to select environmental challenge areas and working with community partners to implement those solutions. Over the last year, School Director Kevin Ferris, in partnership with Lejo Flores, Emily Wakefield, and so many of you, have been working toward achieving this mission in a variety of ways. This fall, SOE is launching 2 new degree programs, both of which are interdisciplinary and incorporate significant experiential learning opportunities for our students. The Bachelor's in Environmental Science and the Master's in Environmental Management build upon and add to the suite of exceptional, environmentally related degree programs at Boise State, with a focus on theoretical and applied learning and training. Students will gain technical expertise and work side by side with our faculty, their peers, and our community partners to learn by doing, while simultaneously helping us begin to address some of the urgent environmental challenges our communities are facing. In spring 2023, SOE initiated a series of faculty working groups focused on science communication, data science, field schools, sustainability across the curriculum, and geospatial analyses and curriculum. Each of these faculty working groups consisted of volunteers from across campus, representing all 7 colleges and a large array of disciplines across campus. From these groups, we expect to see new training pathways developed, improved student recruitment and retention tools, and an enhanced understanding and value recognition of what our faculty, colleagues, and programs can offer our students from across multiple disciplines. I'll use the work of the Field Schools group to give you a better sense of how these groups are working and their potential impact. This group focused on experiential learning through field schools, developing a database of existing field school opportunities currently offered through our campus, and explored the development of common high-level learning outcomes that could be shared across field schools. More work is still needed, but the database of existing field schools and new ones being developed will soon be publicized via the SOE webpage in an effort to make students aware of all the existing opportunities, as well as to provide a venue for marketing new opportunities as they come online. One example of this work in action was the Xena Creek Ranch Field School course that ran from July 28th to August 4th. It was fully enrolled with 20 students across SPS, engineering, and COAS. It was led by Stephanie Leonard of the Energy Policy Institute and Todd Otaniker in mechanical and biomedical engineering. Students in this course had the opportunity to explore the complex relationships among land ownership, renewable energy generation, species conservation, and critical mineral development, all in a real-world context with input from multiple stakeholders. In just a year, the SOE has an amazing set of accomplishments, but there is still much work to be done, and the opportunity for joining this community is wide open. The school and its collaborators have created a suite of inclusive and transparent pathways for members of our faculty community interested in environmental topics to formalize their engagement with the SOE, while simultaneously engaging in collaborative and equitable relationships with their home units. These pathways are intended to provide benefit for individuals, departments, and our broader university and external communities, including opportunities to participate in interdisciplinary, collaborative, and co-developed solutions that address important modern-day environmental challenges. This semester, the School of the Environment welcomes 5 professors from the Human Environment Systems Group as its initial cohort of full-time affiliated faculty. The Hess faculty's expertise, enthusiasm, and team-based approach to their scholarship, teaching, and service will be an incredibly valuable addition to the SOE as we build out the school and begin to welcome other faculty and programs in the new academic year. Finally, we are working on an agreement to co-position the Andrus Center between SPS and SOE. This presents the opportunity to build fruitful new collaborations, expand opportunities for our students and faculty, and build new and enhance existing community partnerships and relationships. We look forward to conversations about how other centers and institutes might nest within the SOE as well. Under Amanda Ashley's visionary and energetic leadership, the School of the Arts has also made exceptional progress over the course of the last year, and I'm delighted to share some of SOA's key accomplishments. Last year, SOA and COAS celebrated the Stein Luminaries' first year as a technological multimedia site for innovation with 6,000 attendees, a robust schedule of public events, a standardized set of public open hours, class visits and class projects, university advancement events, research and creative activity showcases, community engagement partnerships, and K-12 school and camp visits. In spring 2023, the Luminary and SOA collaborated with and supported Shreveport Music Festival, Earth Week, the Andrus Public Lands Conference, the Environmental Journalism Conference, the Apple On-Ramp K-12 Initiative, Boise State's Research and Creative Activity Month, the Wassmuth Human Rights Program, as well as showcasing faculty work from across the university. SOA also awarded $35,000 in interdisciplinary and professional grants to faculty in SOA who were partnering across campus and embodying the mission of the school, which is to serve as a vibrant urban hub for the study, practice, and integration of the arts. The school cultivates new models of interdisciplinary innovation, entrepreneurial initiative, and collaborative community engagement in order to prepare artists and all students to thrive in a diverse world. In the spring, Sue Latta and Nicole Malumbi led a design thinking workshop with faculty and staff to reimagine the arts entrepreneurship minor so it's more flexible and aligned to greater opportunities for career readiness. SOA also launched an interdisciplinary speaker series featuring faculty and community partners. For the coming year, SOA will be partnering with our new college colleagues from GIM to explore new programs, research collaborations, and community engagement, continuing to expand the Luminaries' interdisciplinary presence with community engagement, data visualization, and decision-making, and K-12 arts education. Launching the Music Production Certificate, which Derek Ganong, Kramer Milan, and Eric Alexander helped design, and the first class will be taught by our new colleague in music, Michael Kastner. They'll be convening a series of cross-university working groups on interdisciplinary creative activity and research, storytelling and technology, community engagement, and experiential learning. And SOA will be launching an Arts Passport to give students credit for attending and reflecting on arts and culture events on campus. I also wanted to share with you the exciting ways that SOA and SOE are working together. Schools should not create new silos, and Amanda and Kevin are working together to make sure that doesn't happen. Last year, in partnership, they piloted school supportive departmental hiring, and this year they are structuring a shared challenge agenda while launching innovative new board structures in tandem. The challenge agenda is defined by focal points through which the two schools will seek to attract faculty, students, staff, and community partners to develop portfolios of co-developed projects. Some example challenge areas include climate mitigation and adaptation, technology change, preserving and protecting place, and advancing and aligning curriculum. SOA and SOE will develop boards with expertise from our local community to help us increase our ability to address these challenges rapidly and effectively. Our boards will provide insight, connections, and resources to position COAS as an action and impact-oriented college in a public university. Meanwhile, the Humanities and Social Sciences Initiative got off to a great start in 2022-23 with the launch of its first collaboratives, seminars, seed grants, workshops, and podcast interviews. They had a great response to last year's call for proposals, made $32,400 in awards, and are looking forward to working with those awardees on their projects in the coming year. The HSSI has some great opportunities coming in the fall. On October 20th, Dr. Elena J. Kim, professor of anthropology at University of California, Irvine, will be giving a public lecture on the nature of the Korean DMZ as part of the HSSI-sponsored workshop on militarized landscapes. On November 3rd, Dr. Trinidad Gonzalez, professor of history at South Texas College, will give a public talk titled Public History as Critical Civic Engagement During the Era of Divisive Concepts. Both Kim and Gonzalez will be meeting with interested students during their visits. In addition, the first episodes of the Thinking Out of the Blue podcast will be available. These include conversations between host Lisa Brady and Yuk-Young Lee of World Languages, Boise State Political Science and History graduate Hanako Wakatsuki Chong of the National Park Service, and yours truly. Future episodes will drop monthly, and if you want to participate, please contact Lisa Brady. Rebecca Sam Castellano, Amber Warrington, and Lisa Brady will continue their work on the HSSI Advisory Board this year. And because the HSSI is growing, we are looking to expand the board. Look for a call for participants within the coming weeks. Finally, be on the lookout for the fall call for workshops and summer school proposals for summer and fall 2024. Another interdisciplinary group that is working to position our students, faculty, and college for success is the CHIPS Advisory Board, which I am co-leading with Mariana DeGraff. If you haven't been following the news, local, national, and international, about the CHIPS Act, I'd urge you to tune into it, both because it really is fascinating and because it has the potential for a significant impact on Boise and Boise State. Boise State is especially well positioned to benefit from this $52 billion federal investment because of our proximity to Micron. One of the most important research and development centers for memory in the world is in our backyard, and we have the opportunity to be partners in research and workforce development as the semiconductor industry reshores and expands rapidly, not just nationally and regionally, but locally. I'm grateful that Henry Charlier, Charles Hanna, Margaret Kinzel, John Schneider, Brian McLean, Jung-Hoon Lee, Josh Eichsenberger, and Donna Llewellyn are willing to join this group. If others are interested in participating, please contact Mariana or me, and we will happily add you to the team. I also wanted to let you know about an exciting new partnership that is forming between the College of Innovation and Design and the College of Arts and Sciences. When the conversation about schools and COAS first emerged, Sean Benner and Jen Schneider proposed the Pay at School for a Digital Society, which they imagined as an interdisciplinary academic unit organized around the dynamic interface of digital technology and society. They proposed an innovative approach to education, research, and service to create a distinctive student experience that values both technical competency and data literacy. Ultimately, the goal was preparing our students and our community to thrive in the fourth industrial revolution. While those ideas didn't move forward in 2020, the potential of them feels sharply compelling in light of the CHIPS Act, the explosion of easily accessible and rapidly advancing AI tools, and the development of interdisciplinary flexible degree programs within both colleges that are already serving several hundred students. We'll share opportunities for interested faculty and staff in both colleges to explore possibilities for what we are now provisionally calling the School for the Digital Future. Our working mission for the school is this. The School for the Digital Future empowers the creators, visionaries, and strategists who will define a better tomorrow. A customizable blend of courses and skills-based digital competencies, critical digital literacy, and forward-thinking analytical skills fuels graduates who will ethically, imaginatively, and sustainably transform our world. I would be so glad to work with any of you who would be interested in this exciting opportunity that could create an education for the future that meets the changing needs of our students and society. We will share opportunities to get involved via our college newsletter, and I would also encourage you to attend the next mashup, Little Lectures for an Odd World, which centers humanities and social science perspectives on technology on August 31st. We will include details for how to register in our next COAS newsletter. I am always thinking about change. Change drives stories, which I used to study, and change shapes colleges, which I now try to lead strategically and ethically, boldly and responsibly. This is the start of my 6th year leading the college, and a similar message animates many of my semester starting talks. It's this. There are 2 choices when it comes to change. You can adapt to change when it happens to you, or you can lead the change, transforming the world around you. Whether it's regarding a changing college-going demographic, changing expectations for how we deliver an education, changing perceptions of the value of college, changing climate and environmental conditions that will eventually impact universities, or a changing workplace and society facing our graduates. We can sit back and wait for change to force us to operate differently, or we can lead the change, guided by our own expertise, values, and vision. I know we have always had within us the power to be the change we want to see. We simply need to relocate that potential within ourselves. Since late last fall, there's been a looming presence on the horizon and a potential change driver that I've been trying to understand. I thought about discussing it back in January because the inciting incident in a narrative arc that was already starting to take shape took place in November, the arrival of ChatGPT 3. At the time, it felt too new to me. And even though for folks in some fields it was not a surprise at all, at that point I wasn't convinced of the urgency, but I am now. I know some of you are thinking, this too shall pass. Maybe you're thinking of the MOOC panic or the badges craze. When people declare something revolutionary, you're skeptical. Or maybe, as my daughter, who I'm going to miss terribly this semester, would say, you're chill. The fact that we're still grappling with the aftershocks of the rapid pivot to remote instruction surely affects how we're responding here. The pandemic catalyzed seismic shifts in education and in work, making visible some of the equity gaps we'd chosen to ignore, and opening possibilities that we'd previously thought improbable. Many of us are still reckoning with deep fatigue and frustration as a result, and we haven't quite regained sure footing. I think generative AI is a disruptive force likely to rival the pandemic, and changes that haven't yet come into focus will follow in its wake for a long time after. There are plenty of metaphors to choose from. Depending on who and what you read, you might think of generative AI as being like the printing press, the calculator, or the internet. You might worry about jobs that will disappear because of technology, wondering about the contemporary analogs of the switchboard or elevator operator, the toll booth worker, or the travel agent. Still, others might try to convince you that it's like the microwave. Don't worry, no one cooks all their food in one. Or you should absolutely panic because this is like the atomic bomb, unleashing an existential threat on all of humanity. This is to say, if your greatest worry is that your students will use these new technologies to cheat, I think you're not seeing the forest for the trees. I know that you're facing immediate upheaval and significant disruption this fall that I don't mean to minimize. But this is not the time to exclaim blue books for all or to plot the return of the oral exam for all undergraduate classes and call it a day. I do think it is the time to clarify for your students what's acceptable and possible in your class or your discipline and what isn't, and to help them navigate an evolving landscape collaboratively and maybe even humbly. Please utilize the resources of the Boise State AI Task Force and consider using their syllabus statement that they shared via the Provost newsletter on August 1st. Also attend the exciting events that this group of leaders will offer in the semester ahead. You could also sign up for the newsletter Jen Schneider sends out about AI, where she curates some of the most interesting items from a wide variety of sources about the possibilities and challenges of the AI era. Just email Jen if you'd like to be included. In late July, the Chronicle published an article by Harvard undergraduate Maya Botnick titled, GPT-4 Can Already Pass Freshman Year at Harvard. She gave the writing prompts to ChatGPT-4 that were from major assignments, weighted 25 to 33% of a course grade in econ, Latin American politics, the American presidency, conflict resolution, Spanish, a literature seminar, and freshman writing. ChatGPT passed them all with an average grade of 3.34. Botnick's thoughtful analysis of the consequences of her experiment resonated with me. She observed, right now, GPT-4 enables students to pass college classes, and eventually it'll help them excel without learning, developing critical thinking skills, or working hard at anything. The tool risks intellectually impoverishing the next generation of Americans. Professors need to completely upend how they teach the humanities and social sciences if they want to avoid this outcome. She also realizes that if this happens with coursework, it will also impact jobs. She writes, even if colleges can successfully prevent students from using GPT-4 to write their essays, that won't prevent AI from taking their jobs after graduation. Many social science and humanities students go on to take jobs that involve similar work to the writing they did in college. If AI can perfectly replicate the college work that people in these professions do, soon it will be able to replicate their jobs. In the same way that we had to pivot rapidly to remote instruction, many of us will need to reimagine not just our assessments, but how and what we teach if we want to retain students. If you haven't experimented with ChatGPT or Bard, I'd urge you to do so. Ask it a question and then re-ask it several times. Read an article about how to construct a strong prompt, like David Neald's 11 Tips to Take Your ChatGPT Prompts to the Next Level, published on Wired.com. Realize that it can't yet compete with you at the things you're really good at, but don't use that as an excuse to be unamazed. Yes, the output absolutely needs to continue to evolve. It has a tendency to hallucinate or make up sources, but the improvement from ChatGPT 3 to 4 within a matter of months was stunning. I've tried ChatGPT a couple of times when I've been pressed for time or otherwise haven't wanted to write remarks that I needed to give. What it's offered me has been serviceable, a little boring, and more than a little trite. I sought ChatGPT's advice before talking to the summer research community. I ended up not using any of it, but it freed me up to be more myself than I might have been otherwise. I talked about the great Irish playwright Samuel Beckett and failure to scientists and engineers, and others picked up the theme. Whether you're an artist or a scientist, a humanist or an engineer, we all have to learn how to fail again, fail better. ChatGPT didn't suggest that. It was absolutely not what followed logically from the sequence of words in the prompt I fed it, but its shortcomings reminded me that I had something unique to say that was worth saying, and it allowed me to let go, at least for a little while, of the anxieties that I still harbor from time to time about being able to reach those of you in the sciences. I found the courage to fail this time, knowing that next time I would fail better. Once you've taken the text generator out for a spin, try one of the image generators. I knew that it was essential that I write my own words for this message. Doing the work of writing is how I think through our challenges and opportunities, and how I reaffirm for myself and for you what I value and what I hope we will value together. But I thought it would be interesting to experiment with how I might share an image. Several of my college meeting talks have had an accompanying visual metaphor. Over the years, I've looked to artists including Chihuly, I.M. Pei, Wangechi Mutu, and Kanupa Hanska Luger for inspiration. And because I didn't know where else to work this in, I did want to call your attention to the fact that a subject of one of my past talks has had an incredible summer. Taylor Swift fans caused seismic activity during her Eras tour in Seattle. As the New York Times reported, her fans shook the ground so hard it registered signals on a nearby seismometer, roughly equivalent to a magnitude 2.3 earthquake. Other measures of her success include the fact that she scored more #1 albums than any woman in history, and may be the first artist ever to have a $1 billion concert tour. It didn't seem right to return to Swift so soon, or because they're yoked together in this summer's pop culture analysis Barbie, even though Greta Gerwig's film is the first billion-dollar blockbuster directed solely by a woman. This time I turned to DALL-E in hopes of generating an image that could speak now in a way that my words, however thoughtfully and creatively wrought, might not. Within a span of minutes, I generated 100 images. Some were provocative, some bland, some deeply weird. I was using a free service through Bing, and some of the issues I'd read about, problems with fingers and facial asymmetry, were clearly present when using a free service. I knew that creating a prompt that sought to produce an image in the style of an artist was supposed to yield interesting results, so that was key to my strategy. Some of the images had direct and clear kinship with the works of the famous artists whose style I queried, and some didn't. Ai Weiwei perplexed the system mightily, but Keith Haring's style was clear to see. So was Kehinde Wiley's, but when I tried to emulate Carrie Mae Weems' Kitchen Table series, I got a content warning and a threat that my access would be blocked. The same thing happened with Diego Rivera. One of the issues I've read quite a bit about is generative AI's racial blind spots and its risks for perpetuating inequities. This is yet another piece of evidence that when bias is trained into a system, educational, political, technological, or otherwise, it will perpetuate that bias endlessly. In the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision on Andy Warhol's Orange Prince, a rare ruling where the justices didn't cluster along ideological lines, and where the original artist who photographed Prince, Lynn Goldsmith, was found to still have a right to license the image that Warhol adapted, I ultimately decided I felt most comfortable sharing transformed imagery from an artist whose work was beyond copyright. And that decision was reinforced when Sarah Silverman and other writers filed suit against OpenAI, alleging that ChatGPT's large language models had been trained on their work, scraping words and ideas from digital sources without their consent and without compensation. For no reason better than the fact that my phone was reminding me of my memories of a trip to the Netherlands and the Rijksmuseum from 6 years ago, I thought I'd go for an image inspired by one of the big three artists of the Dutch Golden Age. Of these, Rembrandt, Vermeer, and Hals, the cues I gave on Hals gave the most interesting results. I asked the image generator to show me what it means to be a bionic superhuman in the digital age in the style of Frans Hals' Seated with Still Life. This one was my favorite. Why did this one strike me? I think it probably started with the flowers on the table. They brought to mind the period I wanted to conjure, even if the quality of the light so characteristic of the period was flat, as Doug Bullock reminded me when I excitedly showed him and other colleagues in the office the image. I also liked the apple. It was too big for the rest of the scale of the image, but the symbolic association of apples with forbidden knowledge captured my interest given my query. Then there's the figure himself. His downcast, contemplative eyes and genteel bearing signaled a quiet nobility, which reassured me that manners, if not civility, might persist in this brave new world, even as I read a Washington Post story about bad behavior at Barbenheimer and beyond. As psychologist Roxanne Cohen-Silver observed, it's clear that the past 3 years have been challenging for many people in our country. We've experienced a series of collective traumas, cascading one to the next, which for many has been almost too much to bear. The combination of the pandemic, inflation, mass shootings, climate-related disasters, political polarization, and so on has taxed our ability to cope. Oddly, his features reminded me of the actor Peter Sarsgaard, so perhaps he glowed for me with a bit of that borrowed star power as well. And then that random bit of color between his neck and his shoulder. Is it a flower petal? Had he adorned himself with something like a boutonniere before sitting for his portrait, hoping the artist might find a way to make him look just a little bit more dashing? Or had he tried in vain to smell the flowers, and a petal got stuck to him as he pulled away in frustration, knowing that only humans could experience the flowers in their full sensory potential, no matter the brilliance of the code powering his cybernetic limbs? When I visited the Dallas Museum of Arts this summer, I saw the exhibition Saints, Sinners, Lovers, and Fools, and I felt even more convinced that I generated something that might help me make sense of the strange moment in which we're living. One of the exhibition's key images, the one on t-shirts, notebooks, and postcards, was this one, Vanitas, Bust of a Lady, from 1688 by Flemish painter Catharina Eekens. Before visiting the museum, I didn't know about the genre or the artist. I turned to my modern Met for a quick explanation of the Vanitas. The Vanitas genre is in some ways a subset of the ancient memento mori tradition. Vanitas takes its name from the book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Like memento mori artwork, skulls feature prominently, as do hourglasses and withering vegetation. These carry the same meaning. Life is short and fleeting. However, as noted by the Tate, Vanitas paintings add a more worldly symbolism. Gold, jewels, wine, books, and musical instruments all remind the viewer that these earthly pleasures are worthless or in vain. In the tradition of the Vanitas, Eekens put a skeleton's head atop the neck of the woman in her image, and it immediately brought to mind the strange white face atop the fractured titanium body sitting so politely in a chair, surrounded by flowers he can't smell and fruit he can't taste. And while my figure had a petal near his collarbone, Eekens had a bird pecking at the berries and leaves pinned to her breast. Misplaced petals and nibbled fruit invite us to cast aside our vanities so that we might invest in something more meaningful. This is a balancing act every bit as difficult as the one involving our personal and professional priorities. As I thought about the strange points of contact across centuries and media in these images, I became more certain that right now, AI can show you what you ask with a basic level of competence, and more intrigued by how it might also show you what you didn't know you wanted to ask at a level you didn't expect. In order to seize the new opportunities that this weird and terrifying moment in time provides, might we not need to let go of some of our vanities about what we know and can do, while also proudly reclaiming our unique and intrinsic value? If the digital Vanitas doesn't convince you of the possibility that these tools might release in us and for us, perhaps AlphaFold's solution to protein folding will. While some AI seems to replicate aspects of what the human can do, other forms aim to augment our capabilities by radically enhancing our efficiency. This summer, Ezra Klein spoke with Demis Hassabis, the founder of DeepMind. One of DeepMind's AI projects is AlphaFold, which solves the problem of protein folding and then open-sourced its code. When Forbes reported on that news, the title said it all. AlphaFold is the most important achievement in AI ever. Hassabis explains protein folding simply for Klein's non-specialist podcast audience. Basically, every biological function in the body is mediated by proteins. Proteins are described by their amino acid sequence, so you can think of it loosely as the genetic sequence for a protein. And that's a one-dimensional string of letters you can think of. But in the body, they scrunch up into a 3D shape very, very quickly. And it's the 3D shape of the protein that governs its function, what it does in the body. And so the protein folding problem, in essence, is, can you predict the 3D shape of the protein directly from the amino acid sequence? Hassabis also explains why this is so important to drug discovery. The reason it's so important is that a lot of disease is caused by proteins misfolding or folding wrong. And also, if you want to design drugs to combat diseases, you need to know what the surface of the protein and therefore the shape of the protein is, so you can know which parts of the protein to target with your drug compound. Humans hadn't solved the problem of protein folding because the work of charting a single protein folding sequence was an incredibly laborious experimental process using X-ray crystallography or cryo-electron microscopy, and there are more than 200 million proteins. It typically takes a PhD student their entire time in doctoral training to complete one sequence, and in 50 years of research, only about 170,000 had been documented. When DeepMind's breakthrough was reported in Science in 2020, yes, AI was doing incredible things long before ChatGPT was on the tip of everyone's tongues. Structural biologist John Mould was quoted as saying, "This is a 50-year problem. I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime." Hassabis and the DeepMind team trained AlphaFold using deep reinforcement learning. They trained AlphaFold's neural networks with the relatively small data set of 170,000 protein sequences created by humans, but then they also created rewards for the system when it was able to achieve new sub-objectives that challenged and expanded the model it was originally trained on, which is known as reinforcement learning. This method paralleled one DeepMind used previously, when they created the AI system AlphaGo that could beat humans at Go, an abstract strategy board game invented in China 2,500 years ago. After being trained on the basic logic of Go, reinforcement learning prompted AlphaGo to create novel moves that beat its human competitors. Hassabis talked about the strategy of Move 37 in one of these matches. I asked all the Go experts afterwards about that move, and they said, "We're just told that that's a bad move to make that early in the game, but they can't really explain why. They just said their teachers would just basically shout at them." So it's interesting that it is a cultural norm then that actually limits our creativity and exploration. So what I'm hoping is these systems will expand our own minds. An AI system won't escape the logic that is programmed into its neural network if reinforcement learning isn't layered on top of it to break through the limitations of the fundamental assumptions we've trained into it. Likewise, when we learn, play, and create, we build on learned patterns ingrained in us by teachers and other authority figures. But sometimes those patterns and ways of thinking about the world hold us back. We have to find a way to motivate our own relearning, opening ourselves up to doing the difficult work of going beyond the things that we're sure we already know. And this reminded me of another scientist who profoundly influenced how humans understand their place in the universe, and who provides a meaningful example in this exciting and destabilizing era. While Oppenheimer is everywhere at the moment, the scientist who keeps interrupting my thoughts is Galileo. While Hassabis applied the same deep reinforcement learning to the problem of protein folding that he had used to create a system that could win Go, Galileo modified a Dutch spyglass and pointed it at the heavens instead of across the seas. In so doing, he changed humanity's understanding of our place in the universe. In early 17th century Italy, Aristotle's views on astronomy reigned supreme. If If you knew your Aristotle, you believed celestial bodies were immutably perfect and composed of the fifth essence. This meant pointing a telescope at the sky to investigate the surface of the moon or to count Jupiter's moons wasn't just pointless, it was taboo because it violated deeply held cultural and intellectual beliefs. Ultimately, Galileo's findings didn't just challenge Aristotle. They supported a modified Copernican heliocentric view of the universe, which challenged the Catholic Church's doctrine. The Roman Inquisition found Galileo guilty of vehement suspicion of heresy and sentenced him to house arrest. Providing people the ability to understand their place in the universe anew, that they weren't at the center of everything, seems not so dissimilar to the confrontations we're having with AI today. The things that we've been taught to believe that make us uniquely human, our reasoning and intelligence, our creativity and our empathic communication, are being challenged in this period, another one in which science is often dismissed or branded as heretical and books are banned. The things that were supposed to make us robot-proof might not be as unassailable as we've been taught to believe. We might instead picture what it would mean to be bionic. Perhaps you noticed this term in my image prompt. Maybe those of you of a certain age wondered if I was a fan of Lindsay Wagner's portrayal of the bionic woman as a child. If so, you were absolutely correct, but the term reemerged for me this summer when I read David Staley and Dominic Endicott's Knowledge Towns, Colleges and Universities as Talent Magnets, as they describe the kind of knowledge enterprise that an alternative university might become if it seeks to be an intellectual and epistemological utility for a town. They list 12 important strategies. While all of them are very much worth discussing, the one I've been particularly obsessed with is number 6. A knowledge enterprise is that institution that educates for the interface between machine and human intelligence, supporting the bionic worker. In fact, Staley and Endicott want to create an interface university. They note that as of yet, no knowledge enterprise exists that educates bionic workers. That is, there is no existing academic institution where students go to learn how to team with machines. Developing that interface will become a key purpose of future knowledge enterprises. I think we need to be awake to this moment of profound change, to thinking about what it means to be human, our natural and cultural superpowers and limitations, and to what it might look like to be bionic, a human assisted by metahuman capabilities. I think we need to picture how we can learn with these tools, how we might boldly point them at something new, and how we might humbly re-answer questions we used to be sure we had already answered, and how we might re-ask those we knew were unanswerable on our own. Doing this might return us to our intrinsic and unique humanity instead of divorcing us from it. And that, I feel certain, is what we need to help our students and our institution do as well. Thanks to another one of Ezra Klein's podcast guests, Melanie Challenger, I was introduced to the poetry of Galway Kinnell, a 20th century poet who won both the Pulitzer Prize and the National Book Award. He died in 2014, and this closing section of his New York Times obituary was moving to me. Through it all, he held that it was the job of poets to bear witness. To me, he said, poetry is somebody standing up, so to speak, and saying, with as little concealment as possible, what it is for him or her to be on earth at this moment. The lines I want to leave you with are from his poem, St. Francis and the Sow. They speak to me about what it means to be reckoning with our challenges at this moment, to making sense and making use of daunting, dazzling new tools, and to finding a renewed sense of purpose and possibility, even in the midst of anxiety and fatigue. Kinnell writes, "The bud stands for all things, even for those things that don't flower. For everything flowers from within of self-blessing, though sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness, to put a hand on its brow of the flower and retell it in words and in touch it is lovely, until it flowers again from within of self-blessing." Rather than threatening or diminishing us, I think our interactions with these new tools might reteach us our human loveliness, might expand our minds, might allow us to articulate our students, and our colleges' self-blessing and potential in the world, magnifying our own quintessence in new and powerful ways. I think it is time for us to imagine and to lead, strategically and ethically, boldly and responsibly. And as always, I have such faith in how we might flower again together. Have a wonderful start to the semester, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in person at our fall gathering on the 24th. Thank you for listening and for the wonderful work you do.